All right, here we are. Here, guys. All right. Yeah, this is just.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for letting me have you. What
You're welcome.
what are your names? And tell us a little
You don't
about
have
yourself. What?
You don't have me.
You only possess one of us. That's me. Not him.
Both have him.
You both own me.
So what are So tell the audience what your names are and a little about yourself.
My name's the Punisher, and I live here in this room. There's not much more I can say. Pass the baton.
I'm Paul Mall.
Hey, what have you gotten us into here?
Hey.
I've decided to devote myself to the study of the human mind and human behavior, but I haven't done it yet. I've decided.
Cool. What are some things that you think you guys know a lot about that you could shed some wisdom on for the viewers?
Why did you say it like that?
Because it's funny.
Because it's funny.
Because it's funny. I'm a funny man, and this is
good comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I guess I say it that way because I rarely ask you guys questions in this way, in this kind of formal fashion.
With a camera.
With the red light, exactly.
With the red light beeping.
Under the gun, yeah.
Under the gun. What was the question?
What do we know? What do we know about
some things that we know
Yeah,
about?
we'd
like to share with the
yeah,
world.
exactly. Like, because a lot, I
Broad.
don't know. I think that our friend group is really close, and a lot of people wish that they
were us.
had people. I don't know. Like, what for you guys? For you guys, I guess I'm trying to get at, like, for you, what is needed to be a good friend?
Mm. It's a more specific question.
Well,
listening is a good. That's a good quality to have. You can listen to someone else and absorb their needs and respond to them. That's a positive quality.
For you, in what way? What is your strongest way of listening? Like, when you are with a group of people, what is the thing that you think you listen to the best, or are aware of the most, or more so than other people?
I don't know. I this is a quality I don't have. I want to point that out. But theoretically, that would be a quality you should have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess you want to not just listen to what someone says, but clearly, all of the other signs they're kind of giving you. So, because people aren't most of the time, just direct.
Yeah.
We're being right now.
Right. Yeah, I think that's what a part of this whole channel is like. I mean, like, doing it on camera, you get to see more of the person. Instead of, like, doing an interview over the phone, but obviously, like, being in person this is the first in-person interview that's been done.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So this is like nerve-wracking for me because it's like how
It's not going well.
yeah, yeah, really. Yeah.
Oh, good.
I mean, yeah, practice. This is I guess, videos of the practice of it all.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. Is there what, Dan? What?
Okay, there's a. I don't know what that
I
is.
know. Yeah, that's fine. That won't be recorded on the thing.
Oh.
Um. Yeah, I don't know. What are? I guess I don't know what questions to ask you guys, but I'm just really interested in hearing like your thoughts of what's important to you. I guess.
What's important to us? What are our values?
Interests.
No, I guess I wonder. Yeah, I guess like truth and actually listening is very difficult to be done in a direct way, right?
Actually, listening.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's that hard. I mean, once you know someone for a long time, you pick up on a lot of different things. So it's not that. Um, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. You mean what do you mean by listening in a direct way?
Well, I think like asking a very specific question and just listening to the words that are being said,
Hmm.
like that words are insufficient for for getting at an idea that is so much more than just words, right? Um, like the idea of like listening you were talking about with like the limitation of
Well, yeah, but because a lot of people are not direct about how they're actually feeling, and half the time they're not even fully aware of it themselves. And it can be kind of more obvious from outside of them. So, yeah, it's so if you're just like listening to exactly to the words that someone's saying, and like just like I don't know, going off that, I mean, most people wouldn't do that though. You're not going to be getting full information.
now you're like Dan, you care a lot about or like listening is a very important thing for you in your profession and also in life too. Um, for you, like what is your method of how can you articulate your method of listening and how it may be different from other people's? Is that too
Yeah.
abstract of a question?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't think I have a method insofar as I'm not aware of any strategies I'm implementing. Um, I don't think I was naturally a good listener. I mean, maybe you're a good listener to certain people who you find particularly entertaining and interesting, and then it becomes an easier task. Uh, but not to a stranger whose story wasn't interesting to me, whose presentation wasn't interesting. I didn't have like a natural knack to sort of pay attention to that or distill central themes, or reading in between the lines, picking up on cues. Um, that takes a lot of practice. It's like a muscle you have to exercise, I think. Um,
Mm, mm. Yeah, I think whenever I smoke, like the level of listening becomes way more intense, or like there are more variables that kind of come, at least to me.
Right.
Is that similar to you guys?
Well, you were saying that yesterday, like describing, feel like you were listening like, deeper or something, or more.
Mm.
Yeah. And does that mean just kind of being more aware of the kind of like vibes or energies that people are giving off?
Yeah, well,
Kind of what you
I
meant?
was especially aware of it like watching the movie, right? Like I was like listening to both.
The rental?
Yeah,
Okay.
like when you guys were watching
Great
it,
film.
Yeah, rental by Dave Franco.
Thank you, Dave.
No, but like when we were watching it and like all three of us had like an idea of where it was going or what could be happening, and then one of you would ask a question, and like so listening is also remembering like different like specifics about the plot and everything, right? Like one of you was like, "Oh, like wait, what did he see in there? What did he see in the shower?" It was like, "Oh, there was a little camera up there." Like one of you missed it, but then like it's like listening is helping to fill in the other person's gaps. I
Yeah.
in awareness. It's like not only being aware of things that are happening, but whenever someone's blind spot is being revealed as a friend to help fill it in and to inform them to help them gain a greater perspective of things. I think that's one of the reasons that I'm doing this channel in the first place.
Right.
Is to like try to do that, try to help fill in maybe some blind spots that other people may have about stereotypes or something. But yeah, there's
Very good.
what are you gonna say? You're gonna say something.
No, I didn't have it. You were kind of.
Well, yeah. I guess.
Well, I guess the blind spots concept is interesting because I don't know. It is funny when you watch a video like this where you suddenly become aware of a lot of things that you probably are not aware of the majority of the time.
Yeah.
I'm sure that will be interesting.
Just, yeah. Yeah. Are there any like other? I know that I love to talk about cancel culture on here. If that's something you guys would be interested in talking about. If not, that's fine too. It's early in the morning. Or any other kind of like political issues or topics that you guys would feel comfortable broaching or talking about that you think would be important.
You know, that's funny actually because I brought my camera because I wanted to interview both of you about your projections for November since it's coming up, and so maybe we could turn my camera on.
Yeah, that's
and
fine.
Yeah, then we all capture the magic together.
That's cool. Yeah, like multiple.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get some more.
Well, I wonder if I could put this on something.
Is there a
And then we just
tripod? Do you have a tripod?
Let's see the lighting. 1 second. Let's open this.
Popcorn. Oh gosh. Gosh, what are we gonna? 2020 predictions.
Yeah, all right. I'll start rolling. Oh, my memory card is full. All right, hang on.
Is there another memory card?
I don't. I'll just have to delete some shit.
Don't delete some of the good pics. Some of the good pics you did yesterday.
Yeah,
Dude, those were great. The ones that.
I know. This camera's really good. Captures the magic.
Like how they're all just like inside this house.
What?
All the pictures.
Oh yeah.
No. I'm sorry, you didn't bring it yesterday, did you? On the walk? No. I wish I'd brought my phone so I could have taken some pictures.
Burning
Yeah.
on the railroad. Sometimes.
The intermission.
Do do do.
Stop.
Biden's probably going to pick his running mate like today or something.
Oh, really?
Or I mean, he has to.
She was supposed to do it Friday.
He gave like a self-imposed deadline. I heard, yeah, I told Lucas this, but that it might be some campaign strategy to build suspense, even though they decided like months ago that it's Kamala Harris or something.
No.
It's not very suspenseful, though.
Not so much to build suspense as much as to make the selection feel more like carefully vetted, and even though there might have been an obvious choice from the beginning, now it seems like you weigh lots of options and the pick has a little more meaning to it, maybe, that we've heard other names thrown into the ring.
Yeah.
You should nominate Nina Turner.
After she said that voting for him was like bullshit.
Just think how I would actually respect Biden a ton
Yeah, I
if
would.
after she was like, you're a piece of shit.
Kind of insane.
You'd be like, I respect you.
I like that.
Speaking truth to power.
Our new campaign slogan. All right.
We on?
We're rolling.
God.
We're in the red.
All right, Lucas, you interview us.
Now I will interview
You got the
both
power.
of you. Well, we could just keep it an open thing. But, so, what are your guys' predictions for the upcoming presidential election? Any thoughts? Do you think Trump will be reelected?
No, I think Joe Biden will defeat Trump in the general election resoundingly. This is all contingent on there being some normalcy around the election. But if cast-in ballots or mail-in, there's not too much interference. I think Trump's support is really whittled down to, yeah, I think he's a very unelectable candidate. Biden is a nothing candidate who will garner the anti-Trump support.
So no. Do you have any doubts about the way that the virus will affect voter turnout? Because that's been kind of one big concern is, the idea that, public health concerns will keep a lot of people home, and typically when a lot of people don't vote, Republicans do better.
Yeah. It's definitely a concern. I don't know. Do you guys know what the discussions are now about whether there will be like in-person voting versus mail-in ballots?
I think there's a massive shift of mail-in ballots. I think it may rise to like tens of millions of people who vote.
Yeah, so you always have the option of mailing in about any election cycle.
Yeah.
Right, but the states are really rolling out programs to expand that now.
Yeah.
Which is good. It kind of seems like that should just be the way people vote in general, because it's easier than going to a polling booth.
Yeah, and it solves a lot of those problems that traditionally have disadvantaged the Democratic Party, right? Urban areas generally have election booths that are overcrowded and have long lines, and all the rest.
I think Biden will win. I don't think I think at least in recent polling, all of the battleground states are for Biden. Even like Florida, I think is slightly ahead for Biden, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So I mean, if Biden can win half of those battleground states, he'll win. And so I think just numerically, it looks really good for him. And I think in terms of like the general idea, I think of why a lot of people voted for Trump over Hillary Clinton was because that people just didn't want a coronation, and they were like, well, let's see what Trump can do over one term, and if he does a good job, then we'll bring him back, you know. But he didn't stick to his word of like funding infrastructure. Infrastructure could have been the first thing, could have been a bipartisan thing that the whole country could have come up and rallied behind, but he hasn't talked about that at all. So I mean, yeah, I think there are a lot of people with common sense that will now turn and vote for Biden.
So you think it's a matter of the fact that he kind of made these campaign promises and hasn't delivered on the ones that matter to his core demographic? Or?
I think for the people who are swayable, those are the issues. I think that you already had your established camps of people liked him or people didn't. But then the small group of people who were on the fence, who will end up determining the elections, which is probably like 5 million people actually, which is 1% of the population, if you think. Um, it probably could be more, but yeah, those. I think those issues of let's give him a chance, let's see what he can do. He failed those people in this term, so I think yeah, that's what I think.
What do you guys make of the fact that the polls were so wrong in 2016? Have you guys read anything about why that occurred, and is there a potential for that to happen again?
They might not have been as wrong as you think. If there was like the general, the national polls, and those were off because most of them had Hillary up by 8 points or so, and she only, what did she win? I don't know, 1%, 2% nationally. But a lot of the swing state polls were actually pretty dead on, is my understanding. And the prediction that Hillary Clinton would win was what was off, based on what the data actually showed. Like Kenny said, Biden's doing much better in swing state polls than Hillary did.
Yeah.
Which is it's kind of how the election works, right? Like there's only a handful of states that matter because all the other states definitively go in one direction. And the polls in those states are showing Biden doing extremely well, over double-digit leads in most swing states.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. So what do you guys think of Biden as a candidate?
An inspiring corpse.
Yeah, he sucks. Yeah. Yeah. He's not. He's probably going to be more influenced by like the progressives, which I think is great. But I think that he, as a human being, is too tired for this. The American people are equally tired with old people, so I think I don't think it's an inspiring choice in any way. It's safe and it's kind of there will be some kind of like, oh, like okay, our country isn't completely shit because we elected Joe Biden, but it's kind of like just finding square one again. This is going to be a finding square one kind of thing, and then I think it'll lead to the most progressive decade in American history, though. I think the 20s will be the most progressive decade in American history. Maybe not so economically, but like there will be more action towards like getting rid of corruption and kind of restoring trust. Which is kind of how I view progressivism, is like wanting to restore trust and a feeling that agency matters in people's lives and that you can dream and achieve things.
What about Trump? Trump's presidency, would you say, is kind of the most harmful, or what bothers you the most about Trump as a leader?
question. I think his rhetoric. I think the perception that he's very hateful, even if he himself does not think he is, which I don't think I think he's completely unaware of himself. In some ways, I think that he is unaware that he is actually spreading so much or generating so much anger and hatred in the country, and that is really toxic. I think by electing him, we've also put in place like, okay, bullying uh, is actually a successful way to achieve power and respect. Which is, I mean, that's like the antithesis of pushing an empathetic and loving agenda. Um, so I think deep down, like Marianne Williamson is kind of getting at something when she's saying, like there's the only way to defeat him is with love. Um, the way that she puts it is very ethereal and um, theoretical too. It seems like hippy dippy, but she's on to the kind of roots of it, and we as a society have yet to kind of figure out how to deal with those things. But yeah, so is sowing hatred in the country and culture.
And anything or basically sums it up for you.
Um, his lack of regard for political institutions in general. Um, uh, his sort of willingness to overreach on executive authority, uh, sort of willy-nilly declarations of national emergencies as justifications for any type of executive intervention, really borders on autocracy in a scary way. So the totalitarian inclinations of Trump I find most scary and threatening.
What do you think?
What do I dislike about Trump the most?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of what you guys said. I think the big problem is there seems to be an agenda behind his presidency to kind of. I mean, it's almost like his administration is like a Trojan horse for sort of in more ways than one. There's a real. I believe there's a lot of libertarian backing to him, and so there seems to be this kind of agenda wherein he appoints people to these federal agencies that their resume suggests that they shouldn't be anywhere near that agency and should never be in charge of those things. And then the agency kind of behaves dysfunctionally or is, they understaff it. It just all seems like a strategy to kind of humiliate the government and make it look stupid and dysfunctional, basically. And that's kind of what seems to be like the agenda behind his presidency, and that's very bad because we need the federal government.
He talks about himself as though he's not part of the federal government.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean that's part of his branding as a leader is that he's like this outsider, right? Who's come into
make things up.
Yeah, thwart the deep state or whatever. But the reality is that he's probably just going to he's just made it shittier and it doesn't work for people as effectively. Yeah, I mean that's been going on across the board. I mean the post office is having all sorts of problems right now. The IRS is like really messed up at a time when they need to be really efficient with how they dole out money to people. So just that aspect of it. And then I think like the overreaction to Trump kind of about the wrong things also frustrates me. Although, I mean, you could say that's his fault. And I think that's actually a part of his strategy because in some quadrants of like the liberal
Zeitgeist.
yeah, the liberal class, they're so predictable in what they will react to, um, sort of in an over exaggerated, moronic fashion, that he knows how to play them really well, and kind of distract people from what he's actually doing and stuff like that. So that also. Oh shit, I'm running out of juice here. Really quickly, how's this year been? It's been a really strange year that is unlike any in recent memory. How have you guys liked 2020 so far?
On a personal level, or more thinking in terms of
just your general feelings about it? Yeah, relate to you.
I don't know. I kind of suspect Kenny and I are in similar camps where, like, personally, we've enjoyed elements of this year, benefited from elements. But I don't know. I'm kind of imbued with this surreal sense that becoming more disconnected from the world, more disconnected from other people in ways that represent general global trends, especially national trends, I guess. I'm really interested in the psychology of what's going on. It feels like a psychological and a sociological experiment, and I don't think that it's one that we can unwind, or it's one that we can quickly
digest.
Yeah.
I'm running out.
Okay. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I have these general feelings that that there's something beguiling or seductive about the amount of isolation in our lives right now.
Yeah,
and
like
that in the short term is not necessarily a major word, a concern or crisis or problem. How much time we're spending with just ourselves or with just a tiny contingent of other people. But everything we know about mental health is that relationships and social communities are very important to us, and they're kind of being undone now. And there's something addictive about this undoing. This level of isolation is going to be hard to unravel, or going to be hard to go back to our old ways.
it seems like something kind of like an extension of the effect of social media for me, because it's like a lot of what social media has done is, like everybody has interactions with other people that they have to do that they find uncomfortable, or a majority of people, you're not comfortable 100% of the time when you're interacting with strangers or people. But through a lot of human history, you're kind of forced to, because you're just around people and you have to interact with them.
Yeah.
But social media kind of gets rid of that in a number of ways. And then this epidemic has similarly made it just, it's given people a good excuse to not really like interact with people that they don't totally have to.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have had this experience. You're walking on the sidewalk, somebody 100 yards from you is walking in the same direction. And there's always a little inconvenience or awkwardness about passing a stranger on a sidewalk. You have to acknowledge them, or you have to not acknowledge them, or you have to wonder if they're acknowledging you or if they're not. And there's just a little confusion and social discomfort. And now we kind of have this social obligation, or there's almost a responsibility to not walk on the same side of the sidewalk if you have plenty of time to veer to the opposite side. More so in a quiet neighborhood, I guess I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something really kind of convenient and comforting about having a good excuse not to cross paths with someone. Yeah, it's going to be hard to go back to our old ways. Yeah. This is nice, but this is convenient. But what's the long-term cost here?
But I wonder if there's going to be like some sort of kind of when they pass out the antidote or whatever, and everything can reopen again. I'm kind of wondering if there's going to be like a sort of brief renaissance period where people are like really excited to go out and be around other people. And, I mean, it's possible, but it could be the opposite, which is that we're all just kind of happy to not see each other anymore.
Yeah, that the latter is more my inclination. That there's not going to be celebrations in the street. People will gradually get their bearings, but we're becoming very comfortable in a different way of living that has always been seductive to us, but there's been too much stigma around this level of isolation for many of us to go through with it. Now it's acceptable.
Yeah, it's a shifting culture. So what like looking ahead, like what are the implications of all of this, right? Like is it a that kind of disconnect or ease of not having to be as empathetic maybe towards others? I don't know. I fear that because I mean, having social media and like viewing people from a distance like that, or viewing people only as how they want to be presented on social media, like having that as well as just being isolated from all of those people in the real world, like you were saying, because I think that breeds a certain kind of animosity or distance at least, and that some of the most redeeming qualities of people are when you're with them in person. So
Yeah.
People's social media personalities don't usually bring the best out.
Yeah.
It's so performative and it's so conformist.
Yeah, it's like there's nothing new anymore. It's like when you go on social media, all you see is the same exact thing over and over again. It's like no wonder people are getting so fucking bored with things. People think everything is bland. Like all the art these days is derivative. I mean, it seems like it, right? I mean, you'd believe that.
Yeah, I'm pretty pessimistic about the cultural landscape. I feel like we're living in kind of like a cultural vacuum in a way. I mean, because you look at the previous decades, particularly like the 60s and 70s, and it's really supposed to be like this kind of blossoming time in terms of film and music and literature and just all this stuff. And then you kind of look at where we are right now and just what's popular, and it's just just trash. I don't know, it's just terrible. Like Taylor Swift and Marvel movies. It's like something like a 14-year-old would find interesting. I don't know, but we're all kind of expected to follow suit. Yeah, I think it's good for some reason. So,
yeah.
Do you guys have any feeling of foreboding for the future? Something I've kind of brought up with Dan before.
Foreboding.
Yeah, and I had a strange dream earlier this year that was felt somewhat apocalyptic. But it's just a strange time, I guess, in terms of all this stuff that's going on. There's a lot of social unrest, plus this global virus.
Yeah, we just need Ebola to sweep in now.
Yeah, right. And just like a lot of anger between different groups of people. It doesn't feel easily resolvable. So, how do you guys feel about all that? Are we headed somewhere good or not?
I think the thing we'll need to worry about in 20 years, 10 to 20 years, is censorship. Like, I think cancel culture is going to become like pretty legit or become like a major thing in our culture. And I think that like it will start shifting where like the Republican Party is for lower taxes, but for free speech. And the Democratic Party is going to be like censor, but let's raise taxes on the rich. And there'll be this like weird kind of like split where you have no idea, like, should I support like the party that encourages us to like get more redistribution of wealth, or should we support the party that is for free speech? I think that'll be in the next 10 to 20 years kind of the debate. And that's going to be a hard choice. And unfortunately, we'll just have to continue like culturally and politically to continue to support the lesser of two evils, unless we get like anti-corruption measures in place. We get other parties going in. Like I think that's the antidote to all of that. Yeah, yeah. It's I mean it's not great, but could be a lot worse too.
And any thought?
Uh, yeah, I don't know if I agree that like cancel culture has infiltrated the Democratic Party, or that it will. It seems much more like a phenomenon confined to the most progressive wing of the Democratic Party, which doesn't really have much representation. It's my feeling.
Right. Wouldn't you say though that there's the Democrats or elected officials do have to kind of they have to sort of pay homage
That's
to
a PR thing,
yeah
right?
to those groups.
But it's not. I don't believe it's core to who they are or you know, their ability to be reelected. Um, yeah, I think there is a trend to overstate some of these free speech issues.
Yeah. Well, there's been all these protests this year.
Like overall, like
Yeah.
free speech is like gone so much better in our country in the past 50 years. Not maybe for white Americans occupying important positions, but for people as a whole. Free speech has gotten so much better for black people. And the civil rights movement wasn't that long ago. And, you know, the aftermath of it.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be better though if people? Because I think it's true that there's like a greater now more than ever. There's a greater diversity of thought and speech, and people can say kind of like. I mean, that's some people say that's like the problem with Twitter because anyone can say whatever's on their mind at any point in time. Yeah, as far as like the people getting fired or kind of taken down or deplatformed or whatever, to me it just like seems like that's totally unnecessary, and it makes you not. It puts you in an antagonistic position with what should actually feel good, which is to hear these voices of people that have been historically marginalized, because it makes it feel like there has to be a trade off between that and these people getting like losing their jobs and stuff like that. Like whereas I don't think it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, it's like doesn't have to be like this kind of like violent thing that like affects some people's lives in a really corrosive way.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's important to acknowledge that we're three white men who are most at risk of being taken down by some of these trends we're talking
Sure, yeah.
about.
But I guess as a general point, you don't really want anyone to be taken down, right? So
No, but we have a bias here. That's our inclination to be self-preserve, and but I think there's a legitimate argument that this is sort of a necessary or a relatively innocuous side effect of what is, as you were talking about, like largely a good trend,
Yes.
which is a diversity of opinions is now welcomed into.
Yeah. To piggyback off of that, that's why I think censorship is going to be. I think it's things have swung in a way where it's really helpful right now. Like it's breaking the door open to a lot of possibilities in terms of like listening to different intersections of like race, class, gender, sexuality. Um, but I think in 10 to 20 years, the kind of plants that have been the seeds that have been planted in terms of censorship are going to grow into something that we didn't anticipate and that we can't really see right now. I mean, we can only see the seeds being planted for cancel culture and censorship, and that's going to be an issue. But I think right now we're reaping more positives from it than negatives.
yeah. Well, yeah, I definitely have a more implicitly cynical view on it than both of you, which you know very well.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting.
Well, how do you think that's going to transform over the next?
Well, I don't. Yeah, it's hard to say what will happen in the future with all what we're talking about. Yeah, I guess I just see it more as a because I don't see the necessity of sort of the canceling. You know, I just think in like very few instances has that been warranted, and I worry about the precedent set by the kind of intellectual and cultural atmosphere set by those very like high profile incidents. Because even if it's not an epidemic where it's happening across the country, it really does affect how people talk and think. And it's the argument is that well, people do need to be more thoughtful and conscientious about how they talk and treat each other. But I just don't see that as the way to get there. I think because what it really does for me is to sort of engender animosity and intergroup conflict. Really, because if you get fired from your job for saying something, I don't really think that's going to make you like love the person or the group or whatever that you who's on whose behalf you got fired for. It's going to probably make you hate them a little bit. And so it's maybe even if the goal is noble, which again I have a certain cynical perspective on that too. It it's not getting. I don't really think it's getting people to like each other more, which is allegedly the stated goal. You know,
Yeah,
and I don't know that
yeah.
that it's leading to in a macro sense sort of uh, social progress for the areas of society that most need that work.
It's a very Foucaultian kind of argument, right? Like that it's just everything is just shifting, right? Like the power dynamics aren't like you can't fight fire with fire, and that's kind of how you're feeling.
Right.
Like if like cancel culture kind of fires someone, um, or then that kind of animosity is just transferred to the other person in an institutional way. I mean, and that yeah, um, I, yeah. I think the way forward from it. Oh well, what do you think? Were you going to say something?
No, you can go for it.
Um, I think the way forward from it is there's nothing institutional or legislative that we can do. Is I think the point. I think it comes from like
Well, that I disagree with. I guess.
well, I
Yeah.
think you can. I think there are legislative things that you can do to help move it in a direction where it'd be easier for people to empathize with people. But I think ultimately, like, if you want peace in your life or if you want peace in the world, like, the first thing is you have to be first to be at peace with yourself.
Right.
And I think
Well, to the degree that the goal really is to get people to get along and like each other more, I think that's a kind of utopian ideal. I mean, you can do it to a degree, I think,
yeah.
but even that said, I don't think this is the way to do that. By sort of pitting people against each other and saying, "Oh, you're different than them, and your experience is different than theirs, and you can never understand their experience, so you just have to get behind them and support them." Most people on a visceral level don't respond well to those kinds of commands. It's not a way to get people to like each other more. I also sort of disagree with the idea that the point of this country is for all of us to like each other. It seems very much the opposite of that because the whole mixing pot, the whole like melting pot idea was never that all these like differing ethnic groups like all love being in these diverse ghettos together. No, it's like they all kind of hate each other. They're all sort of like in it, but they all have to be around each other and kind of mutually like exploit.
Respect.
Yeah, well, not even that, but
Oh.
just mutually exploit each other for the purposes of the market. Now, I'm not saying that that's what our ideal should be, but I think at root that's more of what America is than, oh, we're all in this big happy family together. Because it's not. The point of America is that it is this diverse place, and when you have authentic diversity, people don't get along very well. Because if you have actual differences, then you're not going to be on the same page all the time. But there's something noble about the idea that two groups that are actively distinct can come together and learn to get along and like each other. But I don't think you get there by what's going on right now. I think you actually get the opposite, and I actually feel that's kind of the goal of this politics, is to get everybody to fucking hate each other and not get along. So even though the professed goal is the opposite of that, which is why I think it's a manipulative kind of politics and not something that actually.
I don't know. I think you're not maybe putting out the best argument. You're putting out an uncharitable perspective on I don't think a lot of smart people talking about some of these social trends will talk about getting along, and they'll be talking about power structures and intersectionalism, and those are different questions. That's about equality. That is about classic liberalism, and it's less so about keeping everyone happy and getting along. But I agree, at its worst, some of these social trends, that is where some of the central emotional thrust is being directed. Like, hear our perspective, don't offend us. It is a movement toward sort of blanket peace and harmony.
Right. Yeah, I think it almost seems like the goal is kind of more of a monoculture that nevertheless has like a makeup of a lot of different people, if that makes sense. Like a bunch of people who have the same values and are maybe in the same socioeconomic bracket and enjoy the same kind of like cultural tastes and endeavors, but they're just of all different races and stuff. But to me, that doesn't really mean like an authentic multiculturalism.
Yeah. So for you, like what are the steps you think that are needed to be taken to have a more inclusive, like maybe not everyone's going to love each other. I think that's a perfect want. Like that's a want that is kind of perfectionism, right? Utopian. I think it's like you said, it's noble to work towards that, but to expect that there's going to be a finished product where you get that's naive. But I think that having that goal and having that kind of like having that goal in mind helps you to figure out actions that you can take in your normal life every day, every moment, to try to bring that reality into the world, and I don't know. So that makes me wonder for you, like, what are the actions that you think need to be taken every day
to accomplish?
Yeah.
For people to authentically like each other more?
Or to establish a culture of, reciprocal respect for each other's differing views.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's complicated. Yeah, that's just really hard. I guess that's part of maybe my point, is that I just don't know. I mean, one thing you can do, I guess, is foster a sense of commonality instead of difference, which I think is the major mistake here. Like, so much of leftist politics today is about pointing out and defining and sort of categorizing difference and what that means for these different groups. And I guess the strategy is like, how can we reduce that difference, basically? But I think if you actually want to get people to get along, then the best way to do that is to point out what they share together, not what they don't share. So, um, so the kind of alternative leftist argument that's out there that actually the Bernie Sanders campaign really kind of pointed people in that direction is that like one of the biggest things that all groups share, regardless of what you look like or who you are, is that you have to work for a living. So everyone, and for a lot of people, they have crappy jobs, and that makes their lives crappy. And so at the sort of bottom of the socioeconomic ladder, it is multicultural. There's a lot of diversity when you go down to who's working at McDonald's or Walmart. Like people of every color are doing that. So to kind of more speak to that experience and like how can we take these people who are on the bottom of society and do have like really kind of hard lives, and get them to see in each other that there is a utility in fighting for a better situation. I mean, that would be maybe one way to go about. So, but I don't know if that means liking each other more. To me, it's just like a better, more equal society isn't necessarily about that because people are always going to find reasons to dislike each other.
I guess I wonder what you mean by. I think we both agree on that.
Yeah.
Like I think you can respect someone without liking them.
Sure. Yeah. Cool.
Awesome. Well, I think this is it. Any last thoughts for the people out there? This is great. Bye. All right, this is going up on YouTube.